Let me talk about 4 principles in dealing with the parents and in-laws of your present. Number 1 is the principle of honor. And this is so important to differentiate. The Bible tells children to obey their parents, but it doesn't tell adults to obey their parents. It tells us to honor our mothers and our fathers. A lot of times what happens is a child will leave home, at 18 or 19 years old, and especially maybe if it's a girl, and she leaves home and maybe she doesn't get married for 3 or 4 or 5 years, which is the norm. And during that period of time until she marries, there really still is a parental bond, especially with her father or with her parents. When she gets married, that bond has to break as it relates to the sovereignty of her life. Every married couple has to be sovereign under God. There can't be anyone outside the sovereign bond of your marriage that's controlling your marriage except for God. We need spiritual authority, we need church, we need wise counsel, and we need godly friends. All those things are important, but none of those things can violate the sovereignty of the marriage. But sometimes here's what happens. We grow up obeying our parents, and then our parents may be very opinionated and may be very controlling. And they come into our lives or into our marriage and say, well, this is the way you raise kids. Well, this is what you ought to be doing with your money. Well, this is where you ought to be living. Well, this is where you ought to be working. And they begin to do that. And we become conflicted thinking, well, the Bible says honor your mother and father. That's right. Here's what honoring your mother and your father means. It means don't talk bad about them. And be respectful to their faces. If they need something, as much as it depends on you, help your parents out. As your parents get older, if you have the ability to help them financially, you help them financially. Jesus says that it's evil. Mark 7:11, Jesus said that it is evil to say to your mom and dad, whatever I would have given you has been given to God and I can't help you. And so we need to honor our parents in that regard, but we don't have to obey them. If your mother and father come to you and you're married and they say to you, well, this is where you ought to live, this is where you ought to work, this is what you ought to do, you just smile and shake your head and say, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that unsolicited advice. We're going to put it in exactly the same place we've put all the rest of your advice. And in this special place in our hearts, because you're special. But we don't have to do it. And if your parents try to enforce it somehow or whatever, you have to withstand that. You honor your mother and father, which is critical, but you don't have to obey them. Number 2 is the principle of separation. You have to leave to cleave. There has to be a leaving process. There needs to be separation. You need a certain time alone to be able to bond together. And if you really like your mom and dad and all that stuff, that's great. And you get together with them a time or two every week and you really enjoy special times together, that's wonderful. You need 3 or 4 or 5 nights at home alone every week. You need to vacation alone at times. You just need alone time. Let me give you the characteristics of a problem in-law. Number 1 is they lack bonding with their spouse. In almost all cases where you're finding a problem mother-in-law or father-in-law, they don't have a good marriage. Number 2, they lack significance in other areas of their lives. And they have an unhealthy identity in their children. They get too much of their identity and their self-esteem through their children. Next, they become intrusive and even adversarial for the attention of their child, and they often become adversarial with their child's spouse, a woman or a man. And so this is what happens. Here's how you handle a problem in-law. And the first is you just lovingly stand up to them, lovingly. When they begin to intrude, and let me just use a woman as an example because it happens more with women, is a mother who overly bonds with her children, does not have a good marriage, does not have really interest outside of her children, and then her daughter or son gets married and she now feels alienated, she feels adversarial with a husband or wife, and she begins to, attack or begins to accuse or try to divide or something like that. The first thing you have to do is just put parameters and just say, you can't do that. I'm not going to allow you to do that. That's not healthy for either of us. Number 2 is you don't respond to manipulation or threats. Is that, you just can't let that person control you. And encourage them to develop interest in other areas of their lives. Now I want you to listen to this. Research has proven if your parents do not have close friends of their own age, regardless of how close they feel to you, they still feel lonely. In other words, it's not going to fix them, and it's going to break you. You're not your parents' fixer. Your parents need to be a part of a church. Your parents need to have activities. Your parents need to have friends their old age. And in just the most loving, honoring way that you possibly can, here's what you're saying. Mom and Dad, get a life. We're not your life. I mean, we're so happy to be a part of your life, and you're a part of our lives, and we love you. We cherish the relationship with you. Go bowling, go fishing, stamp collecting, QVC, bird watching, volunteer, what? I can't be your life. I can't fill that void. I just simply can't do it. It will break you, and it will not fix them. And so that you have to do that. There has to be separation. Number 3, the principle of protection. And that is, it's very difficult for me to protect myself against your parents. And so if you're the wife or you're the husband and your parents are intruding, it is really upon you to stand up to them and do something about it. It's very difficult for your spouse to do that without your support. So you need to protect your spouse from your parents if they're intruding. And the 4th principle is the principle of friendship. They're family, but what would you allow? Would you allow your friends to come into your house and rearrange your furniture? Do your friends get to look at your checkbook? Do your friends get to do something? No. And so it's like, what do your parents get to do? And parents are very special, and there are certain things that you share with your parents. But understand this, when they come into your home, they're very special friends, and they have to take that kind of a nature. It's a very special friendship, and they don't get perks of controlling or things like that you wouldn't give to very special friends unless you want them to. But understand this now. Some people take money from their parents, or they're very dependent upon their parents in some way, and they want the benefit of the money that they're getting, but they don't want their parents to intrude. Let me say it another way. Let's just say, for example, that your mom and dad are helping you out every month financially, maybe to pay your rent or to send your kids through school or something like that. Maybe they're giving you $1,000 a month or something like that. If they're giving you money, they need more information than a person who's not giving you money. There is an accountability. In other words, if they're giving you money to help you out, and you're also over here, kind of wasting money over here or doing things financially that don't seem very wise, they really do have the right to come in and say, why are you doing that? I mean, that's just a reasonable thing. If you're taking money from a person, there's a higher level of accountability. But if you're not taking money from them, that just means you honor them, you respect them, they don't control your life. There has to be a certain level of separation. I am going to protect you from my parents if they step over that line and very lovingly tell them what to do. And we're going to let them come into our home and into our lives and do basically what our dear friends would do. And nothing beyond that.
Thank you for joining us. Partner with Marriage Today and receive the Marriage on the Rock series on CD or DVD. Follow your interests and get social by connecting with Jimmy and Karen and the Ministry of Marriage Today on Twitter. Marriage Today's latest book, Happy, Happy Love, will supercharge your marriage with practical tips, wisdom, and inspiration for every stage of marriage. Visit happylovebook.com. Become a rock-solid partner today and equip yourself with the tools you need for a successful marriage. $14, $28, or $56 per month. Choose the partnership level that's right for you. Become a rock-solid partner today.